Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 8 of Politics. I am Bo Talbot. I'm here with my friend Alex.
Hello, everybody.
So, today we have quite a wide range of topics. We'll be starting first with a new health development with the introduction of the coronavirus originating out of Wuhan, China, that has been infecting hundreds of people around the world, including several cases in the United States as it comes during the Lunar New Year. This has caused a lot of panic around the world, with several countries like Great Britain closing off travel to Wuhan, China, advising people to not travel there or banning flights from that part of the world. There have been reports today of a Southwest Airlines passenger being removed from the flight for showing symptoms of coronavirus. There's a lot of panic going on right now around the world for a possible new disease.
It's a horrific. Well, it's not a horrific disease. It's a virus. It's similar to like an influenza virus, like the flu. There hasn't been a shot or a vaccine that has been created yet, and there is research currently happening in America that would be done by the end of the year. Yes, it is. These things take a long time, but it's the fastest that we can do with current technologies, and so we have many cases in China, then has spread with 3 recorded cases in the United States, with also a few tens in South Korea and in Japan. This we don't want to scare people and saying that this is going to be one major epidemic. This isn't a new Ebola. This isn't a new bird flu. We just need to be quite conscious about what exactly this is and how to make sure that we're not taking things out of proportion.
Exactly right. This is not a pandemic or anything, but people are concerned because a disease that has occurred in a very rural part of China, a place in the world that we don't know much about, that has spread. I believe it's from snakes. I believe is the cause of the disease that originated at a very popular animal market in Wuhan. Since it has spread to countries all around the world, thanks to the Lunar New Year, which is the one of the largest holidays in the world. Over 1 billion people will be migrating for this event that takes place in Southeast Asia. As Alex said earlier, you have cases in South Korea and Japan, as well as in the Philippines and in Vietnam. There are reports in Australia, and there are several confirmed cases in the United States. So it's a health issue we need to be aware of, and hopefully that they can work on solving that issue as soon as possible. In regards to other news, the United States Embassy in Baghdad, Iraq, was attacked again today. This is following other attacks that occurred on our embassy several weeks ago, following lots of unrest in Iraq due to high unemployment and high inflation. Protesters have reportedly fired rockets at the U.S. Embassy that supposedly hit a dining hall. No word on injuries yet, as this only happened several hours ago. But that is concerning again at a very uneasy part of the world. Again, further conflict arising out of Iraq.
Yeah, and if you guys want to listen about what we think about everything happening with Iran and within that Middle Eastern sphere, we did do an Iran special the last
Shameless
episode.
plug. Shameless
Um,
plug.
you know I have to do this, Bo. But we this all happened after the U.S. Took out Qasem Soleimani, General Qasem Soleimani, who was the leader of the Quds Force, which is a paramilitary organization in Iran. He was basically the second most powerful person in Iran, and the United States took him out. There's been quite an uproar from both parties in the United States, saying that the Democrats say that, well, he was a horrible, yes, he was a horrible guy, but you can't just take out random people from other countries' governments. It's like, yes, we understand he's a terrorist, but you can't. You have firstly no legal basis, and secondly, you can't just kill people. Yes, there are a lot of bad people in power, but we need to use other methods to get rid of them. That's why we have like presidents that the United States deems are not terrorists officially because that would ruin diplomatic relations, but we don't believe that they've been doing that right thing, but we haven't taken them out. Whilst the Republicans are saying that, well, the Democrats are mourning Soleimani harder than they're mourning him in Iran, and Soleimani is a bad person. We take out bad people. That's what the U.S. does. We are the freedom fighters. We are the best country in the world, and we need to protect ourselves. You have this argument raging, but it's very much bipartisan, and you're never gonna get, not in the coming year up until the election, unless anything changes, that the Democrats are going to support Trump on any big policy issue in the United States. But yeah, Bo, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, Iraq has been having a lot of protests with Iraq security forces. Their military, their police have been engaged in operations against their own citizens for several months now. Their protesters are protesting deplorable economic conditions in Iraq since the ISIS has been defeated. The government has failed to revitalize the country yet. Since September, there's been 14 attacks against U.S. forces in Iraq, many of which are backed by Iran. An initial report suggests that the rocket attack today was also perpetrated by Iranian-backed militia groups in Iraq that are fighting for control of the government. So this is just quite concerning. Again, we've been in war with Iraq since 2003. The country we spent billions of dollars repairing the country and trying to fix it up again, only to have it fall in less than 2 years to ISIS. Now that ISIS has been defeated, for the most part, the government has again failed to recover. Again, so much showing the failure of state building in the Middle East, via a democracy. And I'm curious as to, Trump has made moves during his administration. He's withdrawn many troops from Syria. He's said that we're going to withdraw from Iraq. Several weeks ago, Iraq voted to remove the United States from U.S. troops from Iraq. We have failed to comply with that vote. So it'll be interesting to see how Iraq will adapt, if it will ever recover, or if it will continue to be in this perpetual state of violence.
Yeah, but thing is, the United States government has now restarted working with the Iraqi forces on some of the anti-ISIS operations, so kind of settled down. But you see from what President Donald Trump said after the strike, saying that Iran is standing down. And that is just not happening. But why would they attack the U.S. embassy in Baghdad whilst they're standing down? And you kind of had this conversation in the United States switch from, look, Trump took out a bad guy, to Trump is bringing us into a war. I don't want to seem a bit cheesy, but thanks memes. There's been the internet's been a storm with how young Americans are going to get drafted into a new war. Of course, that's quite unlikely, especially with the election coming up. Trump would never try to institute a draft for a war that would be incredibly unpopular because of Iraq, Afghanistan, and so you saw that shift in conversation in the media and in the public domain, which is not what Trump wanted, and the Democrats are quite thankful for the memes. But this escalation from Iran, as we said in our special that you should watch.
Shameless plug.
Two times in 10 minutes.
I know.
And it's the same episode. Why would I do that? But never mind.
Breaking records on politics today.
Exactly. And so you have Trump in this more of a weak position. If he does want to go to war, nobody's going to support him. And another place where the Democrats don't support Trump is in his impeachment. Yes, I'm so happy with that transition. So happy.
Transition.
But yes, Donald Trump's trial in the Senate has started, and at this point, as we're recording this on the 26th of January, The Democrats have concluded their arguments, and now we are waiting for President Donald Trump's attorneys to conduct their arguments. And so what the Democrats have shown in the Senate is exactly the same things that we've heard about before in Congress, and you saw just the facts being laid out all in a row. There, it was a lot more succinct than listening to. I think it was over 30 hours worth of the questioning of the different witnesses, trying to figure out the information, having both sides of the argument. You heard one argument here, and to be fair, it's a strong argument. The facts of the argument are not contested. Even Donald Trump's legal team, apparently, there's been reports that they're not going to contend the facts, but the legal basis for this impeachment. They have nothing to contend because everything the Democrats are saying happened. It's just that you don't have this large majority of people in the United States. There's only 51% of people that approve removal from office. 51%. Donald Trump didn't win the election with more than 50% of the vote. Hillary Clinton won the popular vote by 3 million people. So for him, it doesn't particularly matter that he's going to be below 50% in his approval. He just matters to get those electoral votes. So for him, it doesn't matter. But you do have that 63% of people that want more evidence, and they want witnesses on the stand in the Senate, and they want to hear everything that's going on. So, well, impeachment's still going on. So what do you think, Bo?
I mean, it's the same story, different day. The House proceedings are no different from the Senate. One side saying he's guilty of treason and belongs in jail, another side saying, well, he didn't do anything wrong. Yeah, I mean, now the narrative has shifted, as you were saying earlier, from he's done nothing wrong to he's done nothing illegal, which is a huge difference. Impeachment and has always in American history has been used as a political tool. It was used as a political tool against Johnson and against Clinton, which is funny enough. A certain senator said you didn't have to be guilty of a crime to be impeached in the 90s, but since that senator has since changed his position, I'm looking at you, Lindsey Graham.
Yeah.
But
we all love big Lindsey Graham staying straight to his word and straight to his message. To be fair, you had the same thing happen with one of the members of Trump's legal team, his lawyer, Mr. Dershowitz, who represented who was, I think, believed involved in the Clinton impeachment, and argued literally the opposite of what he's going to be arguing in the coming week.
Right. So I'm not surprised by any of these maneuvers. I'm not surprised the Democrats want as they call it, a more fair trial. They want witnesses on the stand. They want Bolton to testify. They want Pompeo in there. They want Mickey Mulvaney in there. They want everybody in there. And the Republicans saying, no, he's done nothing wrong. We should, with reports of McConnell even saying we should vote before we even hear any evidence. We should just vote right now. So this just straight along party lines, as every analyst worth anything has predicted that Trump won't get won't get removed. The Senate won't vote against him, despite the fact that polls and certain moderate states are leaning against the president. He'll be in office until at least 2020, and of course we'll have to see how it goes from there. Speaking of 2020, the Democrats are on the campaign trail again. They had another debate. Again, same thing, different day. Same talking points, same people. We've now narrowed it down to pretty much 6 candidates, with that being Andrew Yang, Pete Buttigieg, Amy Klobuchar, Joe Biden, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, Tom Steyer, and I guess you could call it 7 with Mike Bloomberg. There are the main frontrunners for the nomination, with Bernie Sanders leading in the polls currently in Iowa, which is one of the first, if not the first, caucus that will be occurring on February 3rd. So, again, they're three of the senators, that being Sanders, Klobuchar, and um, was it, well, two of them, I guess now.
But
It's two of them now.
Warren.
Oh, right, yeah. Sorry, Liz.
Good.
Yeah. There's three now are in the Senate. They'll be voting on this impeachment, which has raised some questions about that, with the president of the United States calling for them to recuse themselves from the trial. So we have a lot going on right now. We have Democrats, whether they're running for president or not, calling for the president's removal. We have Republicans claiming he's done nothing wrong. And yeah, I mean, the election coverage hasn't changed. You still have this split divide between the Democratic Party, between the socialist wing of Sanders and Warren and the moderate wing between Buttigieg and Biden. Currently, the socialist wing seems to be winning in Iowa, but we will see how the vote goes on February 3rd.
Yeah, it's the debate was like nothing happened. There was only one big thing that came out was finally Warren and Sanders started attacking each other, which is lovely, but at the same time doesn't change much.
Too little, too late.
Polls. Exactly, but no, I wouldn't say too little, too late, because they didn't want to attack each other too much because they have a common message and a common goal from a ideological standpoint. They are the more ideologically left leaning Democrats, and they didn't want to attack each other because of they don't want to be attacking their ideas, because their ideas is what they believe in, what they want to be elected on. But now they have to draw that contrast, and there's many political pundits and people who have ran elections before, but like basically everyone says Iowans don't like conflict. People in Iowa don't like voting for people who attack their opponents, like very seriously, just absolutely destroy them, just constantly aggressive politics. They don't like that. That's what I've heard. That's what's apparent, and it's basically a toss up. Yes, Sanders is officially in the lead in some of the polls, but then there's one poll showing that Joe Biden's in the lead. But then there were polls showing a few weeks ago that Buttigieg was in the lead, and that everything's up in the air because it is too close to call. We're not going to know until people start voting, and when people start voting, then we might see people drop out. We're going to see a lot of the people who we don't care about, who we haven't talked about yet. Bennett, Delaney. Gabbard, most likely not, but hey, why not? Deval Patrick, Tom Steyer, they're all still running, and they're going to be gradually dropping out of the race because they're just not going to get enough votes to get through. Yes, there's a long season for voting and for the primary voting, and it's going to be very, very interesting waiting for all the votes to come in. And Iowa's first, and that's why everyone's talking about it, because it's all about the momentum. But we don't know. We literally don't know. And also, like you said, with all the senators being working the Senate for the impeachment, everything's a toss-up. Nobody knows what's going to be happening, and well, there is kind of a void that needs to be filled for people in the Democratic Party to decide who they want their nominee to be.
Speaking of a void.
Yes.
Hey,
you knew exactly where I was going.
I did. Speaking of a void, the whole Russian government has gone MIA.
Cabinet.
The entire Russian cabinet of Vladimir Putin has supposedly resigned last week, following reports that the Russian president wants to rebalance some of the power back towards the prime minister's office, which is interesting considering his term is up soon, which means he'll be prime minister again. So it's a classic example of another Russian power play.
Yeah, so basically you saw all the cabinet ministers resign to let the president do the constitutional changes that he needs to do. In the constitutional changes that he wants to do, there are three main things that I would like to point out. Firstly, yes, like Bo said, giving more power to the prime minister. Secondly, putting into the constitution the National Council, as it's called, and that is something that has not been written into the Constitution. Yes, it is an organ, but it has no powers, and he wants to change that and wants to, well, theoretically, and some people say that he wants to become the head of that and wants to just control the government from there, from the prime minister, then from that, then from the council. So it's massive power play from Putin. Yes, everyone resigned, but you can't say that everyone resigned because they don't like Putin, they don't like what he's doing. That's just not the case. What's happening is Putin just told them, look, we need to move some things along, and now there's going to be a little bit of a purge of people who he doesn't want to keep on after his terms runs out, because he doesn't want to change the constitution. So the issue I have, and I was just about to say this in my previous sentence and I cut myself off, but Putin is fine with changing the constitution to give more powers to different places, but he's not fine to change the constitution to give himself more terms. Which is, firstly, I understand where he's coming from a dictatorship standpoint, but at the same time, there is no difference.
No,
there's no difference.
There's no difference, but I think that just proves the cunning guile of Putin. He knows that when Xi Jinping became president for life, when he was written in the Constitution, everyone was concerned, and it was like, oh no, another Chinese dictatorship, another president for life. How can this be? But
I'm sorry, but Chinese dictatorship, president for life, isn't that how it's always been?
Well, not officially, at least. But with Putin now doing this kind of underhanded tactics, sure, anyone who understands, Russian American relations, Russia in general, knows that it's a power play to keep him in power as long as possible. The same thing when he stepped down, when his term expired as president, when he became prime minister, he picked his right-hand man to be president. Or not picked, but had make sure he was elected. It's just another...
No. You're right to say picked.
It was a classic... I'm honestly a bit impressed. It's cunning, it's guile. To the average person, it might go over their head. Oh, look, Putin's trying to reform. No, he's not. He's trying to consolidate power just through another method in case the presidency doesn't work out, or when he's termed out, because you can't have, I think it's more than 2 terms in a row. You have to step down and you can run again. He's stepping aside soon to get that to work. So,
but the biggest issue is that we don't know anything about how it's been taken in Russia. All of the media is controlled by Putin. Yes, there are some small media outlets that are still free, but I say that in air quotes. There is no free media. We don't know what the reaction is, and we don't know what the average Russian thinks about it. They have no organization, opposition organization. There is no opposition. Yes, there is Navalny, who's the official opposition leader, but he's been harassed, attacked. There are many attempts on his life. There is no organization against Putin, and in general, on a bad day, his polling numbers his approval numbers are in the 60% range. That's a bad day for Putin. But we never know we don't know how it's going to play out in the populace, and most likely nothing's going to change. Most likely people are being like, okay, well, we had Putin for so many years, so what's the difference? We're just going to have him for a few more. And that's kind of like, he's kind of, you see this in many dictators, you're kind of breaking the will of the people for change. And it's like, well, this is how it's always been. It's kind of how you had the Soviet Union. It's like, oh, well, this is how it's always been. And it's kind of like this curtailing of information and basically the lack of freedom of choice. So yeah, it's a horrific state of events if looking at it from the outside. But there's one more thing. There's one more thing that kind of is very important from a constitutional standpoint. Yes, we talk about this in all the things that are happening inside Russia that are having a large effect. But the biggest thing I personally believe is that he Putin is going to put into the constitution that that Russia does not have to follow any international agreements whatsoever. Any international agreements, any decisions made by any organization, anything that other countries vote for, the Russia just doesn't have to do it. It was all voluntary anyway, because all the international organizations protect the sovereignty of countries, and they cannot dictate laws to different countries, or dictate how to run how to run people's governments. And so now, with him removing himself from any international agreement, basically, you can't keep Russia accountable in any way, shape, or form other than through violence and pressure.
Oh, oy vey. Um,
Lovely jubbly.
right. Moving on, the CEO of Amazon recently had his cell phone hacked again, this time by the Saudi Arabians, which they supposedly have already hacked him in the past. This is quite concerning now that we've one of the richest men in the world, the chief executive officer of one of the largest companies in the world. Not even his data is safe. So that says a lot for the rest of us. Uh, Other than that, another tech news: Apple has refused to unlock a phone for federal law enforcement investigating the Pensacola Naval Air Station shooting, just like they refused to unlock the San Bernardino shooter's phone. This comes after a lot of pressure by the FBI to get Apple to remotely open the phone. Instead, they have refused to, citing client privilege, saying that this private individual does not owe the government anything, since this it's an Apple phone. We don't have to give the government anything, which is again another constitutional challenge. The Supreme Court might have to get involved in this again.
Yes, but the main argument that Apple has is that if they basically what the government's asking them to do is change their OS so that the government has a backdoor. If the government has the backdoor to one phone, they have backdoor to every phone. That's against Apple's privacy, Apple's idea of privacy and how they want to deal with it, and that is not something that a normal consumer would want. The government spying on them. It's kind of why we had this massive issue with Snowden and him coming out talking about how NSA was collecting all this information on all these people. So we had that come out. People didn't want that whatsoever. But now we have Apple, Apple just maintaining that public opinion, and public opinion is on that side. Public opinion is on that side.
Right.
In other news, the EPA has been deregulating some of the clean water some of the clean water laws that have been passed and that are under their jurisdiction. The leniency has been increased on how much wastewater can be put into rivers that we drink out of, which is another massive climate issue, an environmental issue. We have to understand that climate change and like global warming, that whole phenomenon isn't one thing. It isn't just the global change in temperatures, melting ice cap, it's increasing water levels. It's protecting our environment so that we can live here. It's toxic chemicals in rivers and the waste in rivers, like how the EPA is going to be letting things flow. To say it in a well, I tried a pun, but I guess it didn't work out.
But this follows other moves by the Trump administration, like designating certain areas national parks to secure them for drilling and oil rights. This comes after we've removed ourselves from the Paris Climate Accords. We've tried to deregulate. We tried to bring back coal in the United States. This is just another move by this administration to deregulate Obama era climate protection. We've seen President Trump sparring with people like Greta Thunberg at international climate accords. But with that, we've seen the president calling climate change, quote, the furthest thing from a hoax, which is a step back from his previous statements calling climate change a hoax orchestrated by China. So we just seen, back and forth, but publicly, but underlying, like with this recent move by the EPA, we've seen constant rollbacks of protections of our country's natural resources, which is quite concerning considering that the UN has said in like by 2050 the world will never be the same due to climate change. Considering America is the second largest polluter, this is quite concerning.
Yeah, it's it's quite a horrific state of events. And another thing that has unfortunately happened today, a few hours ago, the legendary NBA Hall of Famer Kobe Bryant and his daughter have passed away in a helicopter, tragically passed away in a helicopter crash in California. Um, we we are we here at Politics uh, send our condolences to the family, to the Kobe family, and we hope to so that they can find a resolution. And well, we just hope that everything turns out all right. But hey, we can't fix mistakes. And well, unfortunately, a legend has passed away at the age of 44.
Right. The world we live in is it's not pretty. Life is extremely precious. What I'm trying to say here is that we can't always. The world isn't always a great place. We have issues in the Middle East. We have, Australia still battling wildfires. We have great political divisions here in the United States as well as in the UK and other places. But tragedies like this help us, bring back into scope what really matters, and that's family, that's our friends, that's our hobbies, that's our interests. We can't always let conflict and political differences drive us apart. We have to focus on what truly matters in life. Um, with that, we'd like to thank you for tuning in to episode 8 of Politics. Have a good night.